created and wrote by Jill McCatherine. Penelope and Beagan, the two little fairies, lived in a magical place called Fairy Town, a place where echoes of laughter flowed through the trees. But regardless of the peaceful nature of the townsfolk in Fairy Town, these two fairies just couldn't help themselves. It was just in their nature to always get into mischief. Penelope's fiery red hair and wings that glistened, the naughty fairy was always thinking of new ways to prank the townsfolk. Beagan, smaller than Penelope, but just as bold, had bright blue wings and a giggle. Well, that usually meant trouble. Now don't get me wrong, the townsfolk loved Penelope and Beagan, but the two fairies were always causing so much chaos, which left the townsfolk frustrated. From always magically changing townsfolk's flowers in their gardens with different colors, to making Mr. Puffer Buffett's pies disappear from his bakery. Penelope and Beagan never ran out of ideas. No matter how much trouble they stirred up, they always found a way to escape a proper scolding, with a flutter of their wings. It was a bright and sunny morning in Fairy Town when Penelope and Beagan decided to visit Mr. Puffer Buffett's bakery. The smell of fresh blueberry pie baking in the oven made the two fairies' eyes gleam with mischief.
I think we should mix all the flour with fairy dust.
Let's do it. It'll make everything float.
With a quick swirl of their hands, dusted glittering fairy dust into the flour. Instead of making everything float, the mixture turned into a sticky mess, causing the dough to swell up and explode everywhere. When two fairies turned around, poor Mr. Puffer Buffett was covered with flour, and his fresh-baked blueberry pies flew out of the windows.
Beagan, run.
They hysterically laughed as they zipped out of the bakery, leaving chaos behind. The next day, the town's main square was crowded as everyone gathered around the sparkling fountain for the daily water blessing. Penelope and Beagan couldn't resist. They hid behind a bush and giggled as Penelope sprinkled fairy dust into the fountain's water, turning the water into a fizzy rainbow-colored bubble. Now at first the townsfolk cheered, but soon panic started to spread as the bubbles grew larger and larger, soaking the air with a soapy-like substance. Penelope and Beagan watched from high in the trees as the fairies laughed until their stomachs ached.
We have surely outdone ourselves this time, Penelope.
But their joy was cut short. The elders were becoming increasingly frustrated with the pranks from Penelope and Beagan. That evening, Penelope and Beagan received a visit from the elders. The look on the elders' faces showed a dim disappointment with the two fairies.
Penelope and Beagan, your mischief has gone way too far this time. Fairy Town is fed up with the chaos from you two.
We were just having a little fun.
Now, when it comes to the happiness of others, in Fairy Town, there is no amount of fun about your pranks. This is where the elders draw the line. Either you with your pranks, or we will have no other choice but to take away your magic.
Now, with the thought of losing their magic, Penelope and Beagan began to shudder. They both promised the elders they will seriously think about their actions. But Penelope and Beagan had no intention of giving up their mischievous ways. Well, at least not at this moment. Penelope and Beagan decided to pull the greatest prank of all time on Fairy Town that anyone has ever seen. But to their horror, the spell went terribly wrong. Instead of the moon disappearing, the moon shattered into 1,000 pieces of small fragments. The fragments started raining down on Fairy Town like glowing rocks. The lights of the moon no longer shine down on the Fairy Town, the moon growing darker and darker by the moment, causing the whole town to panic. At this moment is when the two fairies realized with horror that they had gone too far. With a horrified look on Penelope and Beagan's face and their tiny bodies shaking profusely, for the first time the two fairies started realizing the consequences of their actions. Now the two little fairies had left Fairy Town in such total mess, the townsfolk fairies shuddered with fear. Penelope and Beagan came up with an idea to fly high in the sky and gather all the fallen fragments of the moon they could find. The two little fairies worked tirelessly to stitch the moon-fragmented pieces back together with the help of fairy dust and their magical tears. They started to understand how their mischievous ways had put the fairy town in harm's way. Penelope and Beagan vowed to change their ways and only use their magic for good instead of pranks. Would the elder fairies be able to forgive them for what they had done, or would they be punished and the elder do as they promised and take their magic away? The following day, the moon shined brightly in the sky once again. Penelope and Beagan flew to every elder fairy and townsfolk's tree houses, apologized for not keeping their vows to change their mischievous ways. The elders decided that the two fairies had been punished enough and had learned the biggest lesson in their lives. They helped Mr. Puffer Buffet grow fresh ingredients for his blueberry pies in the bakery. They fixed the fountain in the square, ensuring all townsfolk the water was clear and sparkling. The townsfolk were surprised to see the change in their behavior. Slowly, all trust and faith were restored, and the fairies found out that helping others was just as much fun, if not more than causing so much trouble. Fairy Town hosted the Festival of Lights to celebrate the fairies' decision to change their mischievous ways. Penelope and Beagan were at the heart of the festivities, helping set up beautiful lanterns. The two fairies enchanted the air with music and ensured everyone had a great time. As the night sky filled with glowing lanterns and the townsfolk danced and laughed, Penelope and Beagan realized that they had found their true calling. No longer mischievous troublemakers, the two fairies had become the town's most helpful and beloved fairies. From that day forward, Penelope and Beagan only used their magic to help Fairy Town thrive. They still loved to play and have fun, but now their fun has brought smiles to the faces of everyone in Fairy Town. They had learned that true happiness came from spreading joy, not chaos. Penelope and Beagan vowed never to return to their old mischievous ways. The townsfolk who had once frowned at the sight of the two fairies now welcomed them with open arms. Penelope and Beagan flew across the town each day, sprinkling their magic. They knew they had become better fairies and became closer friends to everyone in Fairy Town. The end. This story emphasizes the journey of two playful and mischievous fairies who learned a moral and ethical lesson on the value of responsibility and how true joy comes from helping others, not causing chaos to everyone they loved.